The signal wasn't meant for me. That much was obvious the moment my console translated it into three conflicting dialects, one of which I'm fairly sure belonged to a species that communicates through electromagnetic sarcasm. Naturally, I did what any reasonable person would do. I adjusted my course and followed it anyway. The coordinates dragged me to the edge of a dead colony, the kind that still hums like it remembers being alive. Lights flickered in uneven patterns across fractured structures, and the landing platform creaked as if it had opinions about my ship. I stepped out, immediately regretting every life choice that had led me here, and muttered, "This is how people in cautionary stories disappear." The door I approached opened before I could knock, which was unsettling enough. What stood on the other side made me forget briefly how to breathe. She looked human at first, soft features, calm eyes, a presence that felt strangely grounded. But then I noticed the long, elegant ears curving slightly behind her hair, catching the dim light. It wasn't just that she was different. It was that she was effortlessly so, as if the universe had decided to make a minor adjustment and accidentally made something remarkable. She held a small child close to her side. The child peeked at me with cautious curiosity, half hidden, as if deciding whether I was dangerous or just badly dressed. I resisted the urge to defend my outfit. "You followed the signal," she said, her voice steady but carrying a faint exhaustion that didn't quite match her composure. "I did," I admitted. In my defense, it was very persuasive, also confusing, and possibly insulting. She blinked once as if processing that, then stepped aside slightly. "Come in. You are not who I expected, but you are here." That was not comforting. Inside, the structure was warmer than I anticipated, lit by soft, shifting panels that seemed to respond to movement. I tried not to stare at everything, like an overexcited tourist, but I failed immediately when a floating device drifted past me and adjusted its shape as if judging my posture. "Relax," I whispered to it. "I'm doing my best." "You speak to objects?" she asked. "Only when they start it," I replied. "That one looked at me first." For a moment there was silence. Then unexpectedly, she almost smiled. It was brief, like a glitch in an otherwise serious system, but it was there. "I sent the signal because I require assistance," she said, returning her attention to me. "I am alone. My partner is gone." There was no dramatic pause, no visible collapse into grief. Just a statement, delivered with a quiet finality that made it heavier than any display of emotion. "I'm sorry," I said, suddenly aware that I had no training in responding to situations like this, especially not on abandoned colonies with sentient furniture. She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the words without dwelling on them. "I have a child. I must ensure their survival and development. Alone, this is inefficient." "That's one way to put it," I said gently, glancing at the child who was now watching me more openly. "I have observed human social structures," she continued. "Partnership increases success probability. Therefore, I propose an arrangement." I felt a strange sense of foreboding, like the moment before a system crash. "You will assist me in raising my child," she said. "In return, I will marry you." I stared at her. The child stared at me. Even the floating device seemed to pause, as if waiting for my reaction. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "I think my translator just tripped over something." "It did not," she replied calmly. "Right," I said. "Of course it didn't. That would be too convenient." There was a long silence as I tried to process the situation. Somewhere in my mind, a very rational voice was listing all the reasons this was absurd. Unfortunately, that voice was being ignored by another part of me that was deeply curious and slightly amused. "You're serious?" I said. "Yes." "And this is a normal proposal where you're from?" "It is a logical one." "I see," I said, though I absolutely did not. "And you're offering marriage like it's a service contract." "If that helps you understand it," she said. "It does not," I admitted, "but I appreciate the effort." The child stepped forward then, cautiously, and reached out toward me. I froze, unsure if this was a greeting or some kind of test I was about to fail spectacularly. "They are curious," she said. "I am too," I replied. "That's how I ended up here." The child made a soft sound, something between a hum and a question, and I found myself crouching slightly, meeting their gaze. Up close, their features mirrored hers, though softer, still forming. "Well," I said quietly, "this is officially the strangest day of my life." The child tilted their head, as if considering that statement, then made another sound that almost resembled laughter. I looked up at her. Do they always do that? Only when they are amused, she said. Great, I muttered. I've been here 5 minutes and I'm already the entertainment. For the first time, her expression shifted more noticeably, a hint of warmth breaking through the composure. That may be beneficial. Laughter is useful. Good, Ern, I said, because I have a lot of accidental jokes. She studied me for a moment, as if recalculating something. Will you accept? I hesitated, glancing between her and the child, then back at the strange, humming space that somehow already felt less empty than when I had arrived. I think, I said slowly, I need to understand what I'm agreeing to before I accidentally become part of an interstellar marriage agreement. That is acceptable, she said. Good, I replied, because I have questions. A lot of questions. Possibly too many. That is also acceptable. I exhaled, realizing I hadn't been breathing properly for the past few minutes. All right, I said. Then let's start with the basics. The floating device drifted closer again, its surface shifting as if preparing to record everything. I pointed at it. And that thing better not be legally binding. I stayed. That realization didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, somewhere between attempting to understand an alien cooking device and accidentally initiating what I am now fairly certain was a sanitation protocol designed for machinery, not humans. Why is it glowing? I asked, standing very still while a soft blue light pulsed around my arms. It is cleaning you, she replied calmly from across the room. I was already clean, I said. It disagrees. That's rude, I muttered, watching as the device emitted a gentle hum that somehow felt judgmental. When the light finally faded, I flexed my fingers and sighed. I feel sterilized. That is the intention. Great, I said. If I disappear later, at least I'll be hygienic about it. The child made a soft sound behind me, one that unmistakably resembled amusement. I turned slightly and found them watching me with bright, curious eyes, their head tilted in that now familiar way. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I said. They responded with a small, echoing hum that vibrated faintly in the air. I didn't understand it, but I understood the tone. Yeah, I nodded. I thought so. Days, or what I assume were days given that time here seemed to follow its own opinions, began to take shape. I learned quickly that nothing in this place behaved the way I expected. Surfaces adjusted temperature based on proximity. Doors opened not when you approached them, but when you convinced them you intended to pass through. And the lighting seemed to react to emotional states, which was deeply unsettling. At one point, the room dimmed significantly while I was trying to prepare something that vaguely resembled food. Why is it getting darker? I asked. You are frustrated, she said. I am cooking, I corrected. There is no difference. I disagree strongly. She watched me for a moment, then stepped closer and adjusted something on the device. The surface shifted, rearranging itself with an efficiency that made my earlier efforts look like abstract art. You were attempting to combine incompatible elements, she said. I was improvising, I replied. You were creating instability. That's a harsh way to describe dinner. Despite the constant small failures, I found myself settling into a rhythm. It was strange, unpredictable, and occasionally humiliating, but it was also engaging. The child in particular seemed determined to involve me in everything. They would approach me with objects I didn't recognize, making soft sounds that felt like questions. I responded the only way I could, by guessing, often incorrectly. This is a toy? I said once, holding up a small shifting sphere. The sphere unfolded suddenly, projecting a complex pattern of light that spun rapidly in front of my face. Or not, I added. The child made a delighted sound, reaching out to adjust the projection. It changed instantly, becoming something softer, slower, almost calming. Okay, I said, watching it. That's actually impressive. They are learning, she said from nearby. So am I admitted, though I feel like I'm significantly behind. She studied me briefly. You adapt quickly. That's one way to describe it, I said. Another way would be barely keeping up but trying not to panic. That is also accurate. I glanced at her. You're very honest. It is efficient. Right, I said. Efficiency. I'm starting to see why your proposal sounded like a contract. At that, she paused. Not fully, just enough to register the shift. You have not declined, she said. I haven't accepted either, I replied carefully. You are still here. I opened my mouth to respond, then stopped. She wasn't wrong. I was still here. I said I'd understand what I'm agreeing to, I said. Turns out that takes time. That is acceptable. Good, I said, exhaling slightly, because I'm still figuring out what half of these things do. As if on cue, the floating device from before drifted closer, its surface shifting again. I don't trust that thing, I said quietly. It is observing. Of course it is. It records developmental progress. Whose? I asked. Yes. I stared at it. That's not comforting. The child reached out toward the device, and it responded instantly, reshaping itself into something softer, almost playful. I watched the interaction, noticing how naturally they moved together, as if the technology wasn't separate from them, but an extension of their environment. You built all of this? I asked. She shook her head slightly. It was already here. I adapted it. That's impressive, I said. I can barely adapt to it. You are improving. Slowly, I said. Painfully, slowly. The child moved closer to me then, pressing lightly against my side. I froze for a moment, unsure how to respond, then carefully rested a hand on their shoulder. They didn't pull away. Something about that small moment felt significant, though I couldn't quite explain why. They trust you, she said. That seems like a mistake, I replied. It is not. I glanced at her, then back at the child. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. You are present, she said. That is sufficient. For now, I said. For now, she agreed. There was a quiet pause, the kind that didn't feel empty but full of unspoken things. I cleared my throat slightly. So, I said, gesturing vaguely around us, if I'm going to continue not officially agreeing to your proposal, I should probably at least understand the daily expectations. She considered that. You will assist with care, protection, and learning. That sounds manageable, I said. Vaguely. You will also remain. I hesitated. That part sounds more permanent. It is. I looked at the child again, then at her, then at the strange, shifting environment that no longer felt entirely foreign. Yeah, I said quietly. I was afraid you'd say that. The floating device emitted a soft tone, as if noting the moment. I pointed at it. If that thing writes hesitant agreement anywhere, I'm leaving. It does not use those words, she said. Good, Monte replied, because I'm still working up to whatever this is. The child made another soft, amused sound, and I sighed. All right, I said. Step 1. Figure out how not to be outsmarted by the kitchen. That will require time, she said. I have time, I replied. And for reasons I was only beginning to understand, I didn't immediately regret saying it. I stopped counting the days when the walls stopped feeling like walls. At first, everything had been separate. Me, the structure, the strange systems that behaved like they had personalities. But somewhere along the way, I stopped hesitating before touching things, stopped asking permission from doors, stopped expecting the floor to betray me. It didn't. Not anymore. Well, I said one morning, staring at the surface in front of me, I think I just made breakfast. It is not breakfast, she replied calmly from behind me. It looks like breakfast. It is a structural stabilizer. I stared at the glowing, layered object sitting on the surface. I was going to eat that. You should not. That feels like important information you could have shared earlier. You did not ask. I didn't think I needed to ask if something was edible, I muttered. That's usually a safe assumption. It is not here. Clearly. Behind me, the child made a soft, bubbling sound that I had come to recognize as laughter. I turned slightly and pointed at them. You encourage this, I said. They tilted their head, completely unbothered by the accusation. I am being mocked in a language I don't understand, I added. You are adapting, she said. I am surviving, I corrected. There's a difference. Despite everything, there was something almost comforting about the routine that had formed. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was anticipating. The systems didn't feel hostile. The silence didn't feel empty. And the child had started seeking me out. At first, it had been cautious curiosity. Now it was deliberate. They would approach me with small, shifting objects, or simply sit near me without making a sound, as if my presence alone was enough. I found myself responding without thinking. Okay, I said, crouching slightly as they placed a small device in my hand. What does this one do? And please tell me it doesn't explode. They made a soft tone, then tapped the surface twice. I followed the motion. The device unfolded instantly, projecting a series of moving shapes that floated between us. They shifted in response to my movement, rearranging themselves when I reached out. That's actually amazing, I said. They made another sound, softer this time. Yeah, I nodded. I agree. I didn't realize she had moved closer until she spoke. They are teaching you. I glanced up. I thought I was teaching them. You are both incorrect. That sounds about right, I said. We're just confusing each other productively. The projection shifted again, reacting to the child's input. This time the shapes aligned into something more structured, almost like a pattern with intention. What is that? I asked. They are showing you recognition sequences. Of course they are, I said. I was just about to say that. She watched me for a moment, her expression unreadable but not distant. You're improving, she said. I am learning not to eat construction materials, I replied. That's progress. It is. There was a brief pause and then, unexpectedly, the child moved closer and leaned lightly against me again. This time I didn't freeze. I just adjusted slightly, making space without thinking about it. They do that more often now, I said quietly. They are comfortable. That still feels like a risk, I said. I trip over flat surfaces. They have observed that. Great, I sighed. Even my flaws are documented. They are not flaws, she said. They are patterns. That's a generous interpretation. The child reached up suddenly, touching my hand with small, careful fingers. There was a faint warmth, not physical exactly, but something that settled under the surface of awareness. I blinked. Did they just... They are establishing a link, she said. A what? A simple one. Emotional recognition. I looked down at the child, who was watching me with quiet focus. I should probably be better prepared for that, I said. They chose you. That doesn't explain anything, I replied. It explains enough. I wasn't sure it did. Still, I didn't pull my hand away. The connection, if that's what it was, felt strange. Not invasive, not overwhelming, just present. Like standing in a room with someone and knowing they were there without looking. The child made a soft sound, and I felt it more than heard it. Okay, I said slowly. That's new. You are adapting, she said again. I'm starting to think that's your answer to everything. It is efficient. Of course it is. The projection between us faded, the device folding back into its original shape. The child took it back carefully, then looked between me and her. There was a moment, brief but clear, where something unspoken passed between them. I noticed it. All right, I said, straightening slightly. I'm going to ask a question, and I'd like a direct answer. She inclined her head slightly. This arrangement, I said, this situation, it's changing. Yes, that was fast. It is observable. I know it is, I said. That's why I'm asking. She studied me for a moment, then spoke. You are no longer temporary. I exhaled slowly. That sounds dangerously close to permanent. It is approaching that. I looked at the child, who was now watching us both with quiet attention. I didn't agree to that, I said. You did not refuse. That's not the same thing. It is, in this context. I rubbed my face briefly. I walked into that, didn't I? Yes. Great, I muttered. There was a pause, then something shifted in her expression. Not softer exactly, but less distant. You may still leave, she said. I glanced up, surprised. There is no restriction, she added. The choice remains yours. I looked around the space, at the systems that no longer felt foreign, at the quiet hum that had become familiar. Then I looked at the child, still close, still watching. Yeah, I said after a moment. I figured. The child made a small, curious sound. I let out a quiet breath. I'm just saying, I added, glancing back at her. If I stay, I'd like to at least understand what I'm staying for. She nodded once. That is reasonable. Good, I said, because I have a feeling this is about to get a lot more complicated. It will, I sighed. Of course it will. The child made another soft, amused sound, and I shook my head. Don't start, I said. I'm already outnumbered. For a moment there was silence. Then unexpectedly, she spoke again. You are not. I looked at her, then at the child. I'm going to need clarification on that, I said. You will receive it, she replied. I nodded slowly. All right. And for the first time since I had arrived, the question wasn't whether I would stay. It was what staying would turn me into. The first time the structure locked itself, I thought I had broken something again. To be fair, that assumption was based on experience. I didn't touch anything, I said immediately, raising both hands as if the walls might accuse me. You are always touching something, she replied. That's unfair. I only touch things that look touchable. Everything here is touchable. That explains a lot, I muttered. The lights dimmed, not gradually, but with a deliberate shift that felt intentional. Not reactive this time. Controlled. The low hum beneath the structure deepened, like something vast had just woken up and decided to breathe. Okay, I said slowly. That's new. It is not, she replied, but her tone had changed. Sharper, focused. That's worse, I said. If this is normal, I have questions. The child moved closer to her instantly, no hesitation this time. I noticed that. No confusion, no curiosity, just instinct. What's happening? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped toward one of the walls and placed her hand against it. The surface responded, unfolding into layered patterns of light, shifting faster than I could follow. External signal detected, she said. Good signal or bad signal? I asked. She didn't look at me. Persistent. Yeah, that sounds bad. It is not friendly, I exhaled. Of course it isn't. Why would anything be friendly? The structure vibrated slightly, a low pulse moving through the floor. I felt it in my chest more than my feet. Tell me this is just a communication attempt, I said. It is not just that. Right, I nodded. We've moved past just anything. The floating device drifted toward us again, but this time it didn't look curious. It looked alert. Its surface sharpened, shifting into more defined edges. Why does that thing look like it's preparing for war? I asked. It is adjusting, she said. That's not comforting. The wall display shifted again, projecting something outward. I squinted at it, trying to make sense of the patterns. Is that a map? I asked. Yes. I don't like maps during tense situations, I said. Maps usually mean decisions. She glanced at me briefly. You are correct. Great, I sighed. I hate being correct in moments like this. The projection focused, isolating a point moving toward us. That's not moving slowly, I said. It is not. Is it gonna stop? No. I rubbed my face. Okay, all right. Good. Excellent situation we have here. The child made a soft sound. Not quite fear, but not curiosity either. Something in between. They sense it, she said quietly. I don't blame them, I replied. I sense it, and I don't even know what it is. She turned fully then, her expression no longer neutral. There was something else there now. Not panic, not fear, something sharper, controlled. We may be discovered, she said. Maybe? I asked. Probability increasing. That's not a comforting percentage, I said. The structure shifted again, panels adjusting, pathways subtly changing. I noticed it this time. Did the hallway just move? I asked. Yes. Of course it did. It is adapting its defensive layout. Right, I said, because of course the building is alive and tactical. It is not alive. It has opinions, I said. That's close enough. She ignored that. We must prepare, she said. I blinked. Prepare how? She looked at me, and for the first time since I had met her, I saw something that wasn't just calm calculation, expectation. Oh no, I said, you will assist. I was afraid you were going to say that. You are part of this structure now. I'm barely part of this kitchen, I replied. Let's not escalate my responsibilities. You are capable. That feels like an assumption. It is an observation. I would like to dispute that observation, I said. The child tugged lightly at my sleeve. I looked down. They were watching me, not uncertain, not hesitant, just waiting. All right, I sighed. That's not fair. She stepped closer, her voice lower now, more focused. This place is not defenseless, she said, but it requires coordination. With who? I asked. With us. I let out a slow breath. Us, I repeated. That sounds like a team. It is. I don't remember agreeing to join a team. You remained. That's not the same thing, I said. It is now. I stared at her for a moment. Then I looked at the projection again. The moving point was closer now. Okay, I said slowly. Hypothetically speaking, if I were to assist, purely hypothetical, what would that involve? She gestured toward the shifting wall. Understanding, she said. That's vague. Adapting. That's worse. Acting when required. I paused. That one I understand. The structure pulsed again, stronger this time. The floating device moved closer, its surface reshaping rapidly, projecting smaller fragments of the larger display. Is that for me? I asked. Yes. I stared at it. I don't like that. You will learn quickly. I learned how not to eat the walls, I said. That took effort. This will require more. Of course it will. The child made another sound, softer now. I looked at them, then back at her. You're not worried, I said. I am aware, she replied. That's not the same thing. It is enough. I nodded slowly. Right. The projection shifted again. Closer. Closer. I exhaled. All right, I said, straightening slightly. If I'm part of this, temporarily part of this, I need clear instructions. You will receive them. Good, I said, because guessing seems like a bad strategy right now. It would be. I glanced at the floating device. And that thing? It will assist you. That's new. It has been observing. Great, I muttered. So it knows all my mistakes. It knows your patterns. That's worse. The structure shifted one more time, the hum deepening into something steady. Not chaotic, not panicked, prepared. I looked around, then back at her. This isn't just about defense, is it? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, no. I nodded once. Yeah, I said. I figured. The child's hand found mine again, small and steady. I didn't pull away. All right, I said under my breath. Let's try not to make this worse. The floating device pulsed softly, as if acknowledging that statement. I pointed at it. Don't get confident, I said. The structure didn't sleep, but it changed its breathing. That was the only way I could describe it. The hum beneath everything settled into something steady, controlled, like a heartbeat that had decided not to panic, even if I absolutely was. I assume this is the part where I become useful, I said, staring at the shifting projection in front of me. You are already useful, she replied. I feel like that's optimistic. It is accurate. I burned water yesterday, I reminded her. You adapted. I stopped touching things, I corrected. That is adaptation. I sighed. We have very different standards. The floating device hovered closer, its surface splitting into layered segments. Symbols appeared, sharp, precise, and completely unreadable. I don't speak this, I said. You will not need to, she replied. That's reassuring in a vague, slightly concerning way. The device pulsed once, and the symbols shifted. Not into something I recognized, but into something I could feel. Not physically, not like the child's link, but more like an instinct being nudged into place. That's new, I muttered. It is translating function, she said. Of course it is, I said. Why wouldn't it be doing something impossible? The projection reorganized itself, isolating sections that seemed to respond when I focused on them. I didn't understand it. Not really, but I could follow it. That's not fair, I said. I shouldn't be able to understand this. You are not understanding, she said. You are aligning. That sounds worse. It is more efficient. I glanced at her. You really like that word. It is accurate. The child shifted beside me, their presence steady, quiet. Their hand brushed mine again. Not reaching this time, just there. I didn't move away. The projection pulsed. Something changed. But wait, I said, leaning slightly closer. That pattern, you see it, she said. I don't see it, I recognize it, I replied. That's different. It is. The floating device adjusted again, highlighting a sequence. I followed it without thinking, my hand moving slightly as if I were interacting with something physical. The structure responded. A section of the wall shifted, revealing a new layer beneath it. I froze. Did I just do that? Yes. I looked at my hand. I don't like how easy that felt. You are synchronizing. That definitely sounds worse. The child made a soft sound, not laughter this time. Something calmer. Approving, maybe. Don't encourage this, I said quietly. I don't know what I'm becoming yet. She stepped closer, watching the projection, then me. You are becoming necessary, she said. I exhaled slowly. That's a dangerous word. It is an accurate one. The structure pulsed again, but this time it wasn't reacting. It was responding. The external signal, whatever it was, had moved closer. I could feel it now, not directly, but through the way everything around us tightened, focused. Okay, I said under my breath. So this is happening. It is, she said. I glanced at her. You're still not worried. I am prepared. That's not the same thing. It is enough. I looked back at the projection. I don't think I get to stay temporary anymore, I said. No, she replied. I let out a quiet laugh, more breath than sound. Yeah, I figured. The floating device pulsed again, sharper this time. The projection shifted rapidly, highlighting a new sequence. I followed it instinctively. The structure reacted again, faster now. Okay, that's not coincidence, I said. No. I looked at her. You knew this would happen. I suspected. That's not comforting. It was necessary. Of course it was, I muttered. The child moved slightly in front of me now, not blocking, just closer. Their presence felt different, more certain, I noticed. They're not unsure anymore, I said quietly. They have decided, she replied. About what? She looked at me. You. I blinked. That feels like a lot of responsibility for someone who still doesn't understand the kitchen. You will. I hope so, I said, because I think I'm past the point of pretending I'm just visiting. The projection pulsed again, stronger, closer. I felt it this time. Not the signal itself, but the pressure of it. Like something was reaching, not blindly, but deliberately. So that's not random, I said. No. It knows we're here. Yes, I nodded once, slowly. Good. That's good. I love being known by unknown things. She didn't respond to that. The floating device shifted again, its surface stabilizing into something more solid, more defined. Is that new? I asked. Yes. It looks less friendly. It is more focused. Same thing, I muttered. The structure adjusted again, the pathways settling into a configuration that felt intentional, not reactive, ready. I looked around, then back at her. If this goes wrong, I said, I'd like it officially noted that I had concerns. It is noted. Good, I said. That makes me feel slightly better. The child's hand tightened slightly around mine. I looked down. All right, I said quietly. No pressure. The projection flared. The signal was close now, not approaching, arriving. I exhaled. Okay, I said, straightening slightly. I think I understand enough to be dangerous. That is sufficient, she said. That's not reassuring. It is accurate. I glanced at her, then at the child, then back at the shifting, living structure that no longer felt like something I had entered, but something I had become part of. Yeah, I said under my breath. That's what I was afraid of. The floating device pulsed once more, steady now, waiting. I pointed at it. Don't look at me like that, I said. I'm still figuring this out. The moment it arrived, everything stopped pretending. The structure didn't hum anymore. It held its breath. No, that's not dramatic at all, I whispered, staring at the projection as it sharpened into something unmistakable. No longer just a moving point, but a defined presence pressing against the edges of the system. It is here, she said. I gathered that, I replied. It has a very, I've arrived and I'm not asking permission kind of energy. The walls shifted, sealing pathways I hadn't even noticed before. The lighting condensed into narrow streams, focused and deliberate. This is the part where I panic, I said. You will not, she replied. I might do it quietly. That is acceptable. Good, Ina, I said. I prefer subtle panic. The floating device pulsed sharply, projecting multiple layers at once. This time, I didn't hesitate. My hand moved instinctively, aligning with the shifting patterns. The structure responded immediately. A section of the outer wall reconfigured, folding into something more defensive. Okay, I said, exhaling. That's new and slightly terrifying. You are responding correctly, she said. I don't know what I'm doing, I replied. You are doing it anyway. That feels like a theme. It is. The child stayed close, their presence steady against my side. Not afraid, not uncertain. Just there. I glanced down briefly. You're taking this remarkably well. They made a soft sound, something calm, almost reassuring. Right, I nodded. You've seen worse. That's comforting in a very unsettling way. The projection shifted again, this time revealing something beyond the structure, an external outline, blurred but massive. I squinted. That's, not small. It is not. That's a problem. It is a variable. I prefer my problems smaller than my variable, I muttered. The structure pulsed again, stronger now. I felt it in my chest, like the place itself was bracing. They are scanning, she said. Of course they are, I replied. Why wouldn't they scan the mysterious hidden structure? That's just good manners. You should focus. I am focusing, I said. I'm just also commenting. It's part of my process. The floating device adjusted, projecting a new sequence directly in front of me. I followed it without thinking, my movements quicker now, less hesitant. The structure reacted, layers shifting, pathways reinforcing, systems aligning. Okay, I said, I'm definitely doing something. Yes. Do you want to tell me what? You are redirecting. That's vague. It is sufficient. I would like less sufficient and more specific. There is no time. Of course there isn't, I sighed. The projection flared suddenly. A sharp pulse moved through the structure. That didn't feel friendly, I said. It was not. Good, I nodded, just checking. The external outline shifted. Closer now, clearer. I could feel it pressing, not physically, but intentionally. They are searching, she said. For what? She didn't answer immediately. Then, for us. I paused. That feels personal. It is. Great, I muttered. I love when unknown entities take a personal interest. The child's hand tightened slightly again. I looked down. Hey, I said quietly. No pressure, but I'm going to try not to fail spectacularly here. They made a soft sound, almost like agreement. Thanks, I added. That helps. The floating device pulsed again, sharper now. The projection split into multiple paths. I froze for half a second. I don't like choices, I said. You must act, she replied. Right, I nodded. No pressure. The external presence shifted again. Closer. Too close. The structure reacted instantly, layers folding, systems tightening. I moved. Not because I understood, but because I felt where to go. My hand aligned with one of the projections. The structure responded. A section of the outer field warped, bending something unseen. Did I just push it? I asked. Yes. I pushed it, I repeated. I pushed the giant unknown thing. You redirected its scan. That sounds more impressive than I feel, I said. It is accurate. The projection shifted again. Faster now. I followed it again. Another response. Another shift. Okay, I said, breathing a little faster. I'm getting the hang of this. Slightly. Maybe. You are adapting, she said. I'm going to start charging you for every time you say that. That is acceptable. I almost laughed. Of course it is. The external presence pulsed again, stronger this time. The structure held, barely. That one felt worse, I said. It was more direct. Good, I nodded. I love direct hostility. The floating device pulsed rapidly now, guiding, adjusting. I moved again. Another alignment, another shift. The structure responded, this time more aggressively. Okay, I said. That one felt different. You are not only redirecting now. That sounds concerning. You are resisting, I blinked. I'm what? You are resisting. I stared at the projection, then at my hands. I didn't agree to that, I said. You did not refuse. That's becoming a pattern, I muttered. The external presence paused. For the first time, it hesitated. Wait, I said. Did it just... Yes. It noticed. Yes. I exhaled slowly. That's not good. It is necessary. Everything is necessary, I said. That doesn't make it less terrifying. The child's presence shifted slightly. Closer, stronger. I felt it. Not fear, not uncertainty. Trust. Yeah, I said quietly. No pressure at all. The projection stabilized again. One final sequence. Clear, direct. I looked at it, then at her. If this goes wrong, I said, I'm blaming you. That is acceptable. Good, I nodded. I appreciate the accountability. The external presence moved again. Closer. Too close. I moved, aligned, acted. The structure responded. Not defensively this time. Decisively. The external pressure stopped. Just for a moment. Silence. Real silence. I blinked. Did we? It is not over, she said. Of course it isn't, I muttered. But the pressure had changed. Not gone, but different. Watching. Waiting. I exhaled slowly. Okay, I said. I think I just made something worse. No, she replied. I glanced at her. You made it aware, she said. I stared at the projection. That's worse, I said. It was inevitable. Of course it was. The child's hand remained in mine, steady, unshaken. I squeezed it slightly. All right, I said under my breath. Let's not lose now. The silence didn't break all at once. It loosened. Like something vast had been holding its breath, waiting to see if we would make another move, another mistake, another invitation. The projection in front of me dimmed slightly, no longer pulsing with urgency, but it didn't disappear. So, I said quietly, we're being watched now. Yes, she replied. Great, I nodded. I always wanted an audience. Just not like this. The structure shifted again, but not defensively this time. It settled. The pathways eased back into something familiar, the sharp edges softening. I noticed the difference immediately. It's not bracing anymore, I said. No, that feels like a good sign. It is a change. I'll take change, I muttered. Change is better than incoming destruction. The floating device drifted closer, slower now, its surface returning to that almost curious state I had first seen. I pointed at it. You look a lot less threatening. It pulsed softly. I'm going to assume that means we didn't fail, I added. You did not fail, she said. I glanced at her. That sounded dangerously close to praise. It is accurate. I'm getting used to that, I said. I'm not sure how I feel about it. The child shifted beside me, their hands still in mine, still steady. I realized then that they hadn't let go once, not during any of it. You weren't worried, I said quietly, looking down. They made a soft sound, calm, certain. Yeah, I nodded. I'm starting to think you knew something I didn't. They trusted the outcome, she said. I didn't, I replied. You acted anyway. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, I said. I did. The projection flickered again, then stabilized into something simpler. The external presence was still there. I could feel it, but it wasn't pressing anymore. It was observing. It stopped pushing, I said. Yes. Because of what we did? Yes. I rubbed my face briefly. So we didn't scare it off. No. We just introduced ourselves. Yes. I stared at the projection. That might be worse. It is inevitable. Everything is, I said. I've noticed. The structure hummed again, but now it felt different. Not tense, not defensive. Alive. Balanced. I looked around slowly, taking it in, not as something unfamiliar anymore, but as something I understood, at least partially. This place, or I said, it's not just reacting, is it? No, it's choosing. Yes, I nodded once. And now it's choosing me too. Yes. I let out a quiet breath, something between a laugh and resignation. I really should have turned around when I saw the broken landing platform. That would have been inefficient. Of course it would, I said. There was a pause, a different kind this time, not filled with tension, filled with something else. I looked at her. If I leave, when I said, it doesn't go back to what it was. No. And if I stay, she didn't answer immediately. Then it becomes something else. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. That's what I thought. The child tugged lightly at my hand. I looked down. They were watching me, not waiting this time, certain. You've already decided, I said quietly. They made a soft sound. I sighed. Of course you have. The floating device drifted closer again, its surface shifting into a smoother, more stable form. The projection faded completely now, leaving only the quiet hum of the structure. So that's it? I asked. We just go back to normal? There is no previous normal, she said. Right, I nodded. Of course there isn't. I glanced at her, then at the child, then around the space that no longer felt like somewhere I had arrived, but somewhere I belonged. Your proposal, I said slowly. She didn't react outwardly, but I felt the shift. I never answered properly, I continued. You remained, she said. I know, I replied, but I'd like to officially acknowledge that I made a very questionable decision. That is acceptable. I mean it, I added. Following a strange signal, walking into an unknown structure, agreeing to help raise a child I don't fully understand, this is not a strong pattern of good judgment. It is effective, she said. That's debatable, I replied. The child made a soft, amused sound. I looked down. Don't encourage her. They leaned slightly closer. I exhaled, then looked back at her. I'm staying, I said. I know. That's not the point, I replied. I'm saying it. There was a brief pause. Then she nodded once. It was a small gesture, but it felt final. I glanced around again, then back at them. All right, I said quietly. Let's try not to destroy anything important. That will require effort, she said. I have experience with that, I replied. Mostly the opposite, but still. The floating device pulsed softly. I pointed at it. You're still not legally binding, right? It pulsed again. I'm choosing to interpret that as a no, I said. The child laughed, clearly this time. I shook my head. Yeah, I muttered. I'm definitely outnumbered. But I didn't feel like I was outside anymore. Not observing, not temporary. Part of it, part of them. And for the first time since I had followed that signal, I wasn't wondering if I had made a mistake. I was wondering what came next. All right, I said under my breath, glancing at the shifting walls, the quiet light, the two figures beside me. Let's see how this goes.